Life, as we know it, is a constant dance between ourselves and the world around us. At times, the world we interact with can be a source of joy, but there are moments when it becomes a source of trouble. You may encounter individuals who seem to bring negativity, disturbance, or even harm into your life. But the question that often arises is, what do you do when you are troubled by someone? First, let's acknowledge that we cannot always control what others do or how they behave. People, like all things, are bound by their own limitations, experiences, and emotions. So, while you may feel agitated or hurt by their actions, the key is in how you respond to them, not react. But respond conscious when you find yourself troubled by someone. The first important realization is that you cannot control their behavior, thoughts, or actions. You can only control yourself. This is a fundamental truth that can dramatically shift your perspective on any challenging situation. So often, we become entangled in the actions of others, thinking that if they would just change, everything would be better. But this mindset only creates frustration because the reality is that people are unpredictable. They are shaped by their own experiences, emotions, and beliefs, and they will act according to their own inner world, which may not align with yours. Recognizing that you have no power to change another person's behavior frees you from the trap of trying to force someone to act according to your expectations. Instead, it allows you to focus on how you respond. You can choose how you engage with the situation, whether you allow it to disturb your peace or whether you remain centered despite the chaos around you. This understanding also encourages self-awareness. When you stop trying to change others, you can turn inward. You can ask yourself why their actions have affected you so deeply, what your own triggers are, and what needs or insecurities might be surfacing. By controlling your inner world, you give yourself the power to stay grounded regardless of the external disturbances. Ultimately, when you stop focusing on what others should do or how they should behave, you shift the responsibility back to yourself. You empower yourself to maintain peace and clarity no matter what. When you are troubled by someone, the instinct might be to immediately react, to express your frustration, or to confront the situation head-on. However, this immediate reaction often leads to impulsive decisions which can escalate the situation further and cloud your judgment. This is why the practice of taking a step back is so essential. Taking a step back means giving yourself the space to pause, breathe, and detach from the intensity of the moment. In the heat of the situation, it's easy to become emotionally charged, and your mind may not be clear enough to make thoughtful decisions. By stepping back, you give yourself the time and space to regain perspective. This moment of pause allows you to observe the situation from a distance, without the emotional fog that often distorts your perception. It's not about avoiding the issue, but about creating a mental and emotional distance so that you can approach it with clarity. You can then ask yourself important questions like, is this person acting out of their own pain? What is my role in this situation? What is the most constructive way I can respond? The act of stepping back also allows you to check in with yourself. Are you overreacting because of past experiences, or is this truly an issue that needs to be addressed? When emotions are high, we can sometimes project our own fears, frustrations, or assumptions onto the situation without realizing it. Stepping back creates an opportunity to filter out those projections and see the situation for what it truly is. By taking a step back, you are not avoiding the problem, but rather giving yourself the opportunity to approach it from a place of calm and insight instead of being swept away by the current of your emotions. This small act of mindfulness can dramatically change how you handle conflict, turning a potentially destructive encounter into an opportunity for clarity and resolution. When someone's actions trouble you, it can be easy to take their behavior personally, to feel attacked or misunderstood. However, the truth is that their actions are often more about them than they are about you. People act based on their own internal states, emotions, beliefs, past experiences, and unresolved issues. In many cases, their behavior reflects what they are struggling with inside, rather than anything directed at you. This realization is key because it shifts the focus from feeling hurt or defensive to understanding that their actions may not be personal. For instance, when someone is angry, it's not necessarily about you. It might be that they are carrying their own unresolved frustration, fear, or stress. When someone is distant, it might be because they are dealing with their own insecurities or emotional pain. In these moments, their actions are a mirror of their inner world and not necessarily a reflection of how they feel about you. By recognizing this, you stop making assumptions about their intentions or motivations. Instead of feeling hurt or offended by their behavior, you can approach the situation with a sense of empathy. It allows you to separate their emotions from your own and recognize that their actions are a result of their own experiences, wounds, and thought patterns. This understanding can also reduce the power their behavior has over you. If you recognize that they are acting from a place of inner turmoil, you can cultivate compassion instead of reacting with frustration or anger. It can be empowering to realize that their struggles are not about you and therefore you do not have to take on the weight of their emotions. Ultimately, when you understand that their actions are a reflection of their own inner world, it becomes easier to respond with patience, empathy, and emotional clarity rather than reacting from a place of defensiveness or hurt. The need for validation from others is deeply ingrained in many of us. We often seek approval, recognition, or affirmation from those around us to feel good about ourselves or our choices. When we are troubled by someone, it's common to desire validation from them, whether it's for your feelings, your perspective, or your actions. However, seeking external validation can become a trap that leaves you feeling powerless and dependent on others' approval for your sense of worth. Letting go of the need for validation means freeing yourself from the constant search for affirmation from others. It requires a shift in focus from external sources of approval to internal confidence. When you no longer rely on others to confirm your value, you regain your sense of self. You begin to realize that your worth is not tied to someone else's approval or opinion. Your sense of self comes from within, not from how others perceive you. This can be liberating. When you let go of the need for validation, you stop placing your happiness and peace in the hands of others. Instead, you take full responsibility for your emotional state. You acknowledge that you don't need anyone's approval to be confident, to make decisions, or to live your life. You learn to trust your own judgment and intuition, knowing that you are enough as you are, without needing someone else's validation to prove it. Furthermore, when you let go of this need, you also free yourself from the pain of rejection or criticism. If someone disapproves of you or treats you unfairly, it no longer shakes your foundation, because your sense of self isn't tied to their opinion. This gives you the strength to stay centered and respond thoughtfully, rather than being pulled into an emotional reaction. By letting go of the need for validation, you also open up space for true self-acceptance. You start to appreciate yourself for who you are, not for how others see you. This self-acceptance brings with it a deep sense of inner peace and freedom. You no longer need to seek approval or confirmation from others because you found that your worth is inherent and not dependent on anyone else's perception. When you are troubled by someone, it's easy to slip into the habit of judgment. Judgment often arises from our own frustrations, misunderstandings, or assumptions about the other person. We label their behavior as wrong, unacceptable, or hurtful, and this judgment only deepens the emotional divide between us and them. However, if you shift your focus from judgment to empathy, it has the potential to transform how you experience the situation and your relationship with the other person. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. It involves seeing things from their perspective, trying to grasp the emotions, experiences, and struggles that might be influencing their behavior. When you choose empathy over judgment, you stop viewing the other person's actions as an attack on you and start considering what might be happening within them. For example, if someone is acting out or being distant, instead of assuming they are intentionally trying to hurt you, ask yourself, what might they be going through? Perhaps they are facing their own difficulties that you are unaware of. Maybe they are acting out of fear, insecurity, or past trauma that shapes how they interact with the world. Recognizing this opens up a new way of seeing the situation, one that is less focused on how their behavior affects you and more focused on understanding where they are coming from. Empathy doesn't mean excusing negative or hurtful behavior, but it does allow you to respond with understanding rather than reacting with anger or defensiveness. It enables you to approach them with kindness and compassion even if their actions are difficult to navigate. By practicing empathy, you see the person as more than their actions, understanding that there is always an underlying cause driving their behavior. When you lead with empathy, you create an opportunity for connection. It softens the emotional charge of the situation and opens up a space for communication and resolution. This does not mean you have to accept harmful behavior, but it does mean you take a moment to understand the broader context before responding. In turn, this approach tends to reduce conflict and creates an atmosphere where both parties can approach the situation with greater understanding and mutual respect. Choosing empathy over judgment is an act of emotional maturity. It's a practice that not only improves your relationships, but also helps you cultivate inner peace. When you stop judging others, you stop carrying the weight of resentment or frustration. Instead, you lighten your heart and open yourself to seeing people and situations with greater clarity and compassion. One of the most important lessons in dealing with someone who troubles you is learning not to take their behavior personally. It's natural to feel that when someone behaves in a way that hurts or frustrates you, it must somehow be a reflection of your worth or actions. However, this mindset can trap you in a cycle of self-doubt and resentment. The truth is, the way people treat you is often not a direct reflection of who you are, but rather a manifestation of their own internal world. People's actions are influenced by their own thoughts, emotions, past experiences, and unresolved issues. When someone acts out, criticizes you, or behaves negatively toward you, it often has more to do with what's happening within them than anything to do with you. For example, a person who is angry might lash out not because of something you did, but because they are carrying their own emotional burdens or frustrations. Similarly, if someone is distant, it may be a reflection of their own struggles with vulnerability or past wounds, not a statement about your worth. By not taking their behavior personally, you release yourself from the emotional weight of their actions. You stop internalizing their reactions and allowing them to dictate how you feel about yourself. This doesn't mean you disregard their feelings or actions altogether, but rather that you recognize that their behavior is more about their inner state than your actions. It helps you maintain a sense of clarity and emotional balance, allowing you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively or defensively. Not taking it personally also means giving yourself the freedom to set boundaries. When you realize that someone's behavior is about them, it becomes easier to separate their actions from your sense of self-worth. You are less likely to feel obligated to please them or change yourself to fit their expectations. You understand that your value is not determined by how others treat you, and you are more empowered to stand firm in your own beliefs, needs, and emotional health. Ultimately, by adopting the mindset of not taking things personally, you create emotional space between you and the other person. This space allows you to respond with calmness and perspective rather than being swept away by the tides of hurt, anger, or confusion. It helps you maintain your peace, regardless of how others behave, and gives you the clarity to navigate the situation with wisdom and grace. Setting healthy boundaries is one of the most powerful tools you can use when dealing with someone who troubles you. Boundaries are not about building walls or cutting people off. Rather, they are about protecting your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. They are a form of self-respect and a way to ensure that you are not allowing others' behavior to negatively impact your peace of mind or sense of self. Many times, when we feel troubled by someone, it's because we have allowed them to overstep limits that should have been established earlier. Perhaps they speak to you in a way that feels disrespectful, or maybe their behavior causes you stress, but you've tolerated in silence, hoping it will improve. However, tolerance without boundaries can lead to resentment and burnout because you are giving away more of your energy, patience, and peace than you can afford. Setting a boundary means defining what you will and won't accept in your interactions with others. It's an act of self-care where you consciously decide to protect your emotional space. This could mean telling someone that their behavior is unacceptable and that you won't tolerate it, or it might involve distancing yourself from toxic situations when you feel drained or disrespected. Healthy boundaries help you maintain control over your emotional state and ensure that you don't sacrifice your well-being for the sake of others. To set boundaries, it's important to communicate your needs clearly and assertively. Often, we avoid setting boundaries because we fear conflict or feel guilty about imposing limits on others. However, healthy boundaries are not about being rigid or controlling. They are about showing respect for yourself and others by ensuring that your needs are met without violating your own emotional limits. This is about balancing your own well-being with your compassion for others. Setting boundaries also means recognizing when it's necessary to walk away from a situation. If someone consistently disrespects your limits or crosses your boundaries, despite your efforts to communicate them, you may need to step back or even end the relationship. While this may seem difficult, it's essential to recognize that you cannot pour from an empty cup. By setting boundaries, you preserve your energy and protect your peace, which ultimately allows you to engage more fully with the world around you. When you consistently set and enforce healthy boundaries, you build a foundation of self-respect and self-love. You empower yourself to show up in relationships in a way that is balanced and nurturing without sacrificing your own needs for the sake of others. In doing so, you create a space for healthier interactions and a greater sense of emotional stability, even when faced with challenging people or situations. Setting healthy boundaries is an essential practice when dealing with people who trouble you. It involves recognizing where your limits are and communicating them effectively in a way that protects your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Boundaries are not about creating walls or rejecting others. They are about maintaining respect for yourself while fostering respect from others. Often, when we find ourselves troubled by someone, it's because we've allowed them to overstep boundaries, whether it's through disrespect, excessive demands, or manipulative behavior. These infringements can leave us feeling drained, frustrated, and overwhelmed. Without healthy boundaries, you are likely to feel that your needs are secondary to the other person's behavior or desires. Setting boundaries allows you to take control over your interactions and protect your emotional space. The first step in setting healthy boundaries is to identify your own needs and limits. Ask yourself, what behaviors from others make me feel uncomfortable or stressed? Where do I need to say no in order to preserve my energy and peace of mind? These questions help you pinpoint where boundaries are necessary. For example, if someone frequently interrupts you or speaks to you in a hurtful way, you can recognize that you need a boundary in how you are communicated with. Once you've identified where your boundaries need to be, the next step is to express them clearly and assertively. Boundaries are not about passive-aggressive behavior or indirect hints. You need to communicate your limits directly and respectfully. For instance, if a person repeatedly calls you late at night and it disrupts your rest, you can simply say, I need to sleep early, so please call me during the day if it's urgent. By expressing your needs openly, you are teaching others how to respect you. It's also important to understand that setting boundaries isn't about being rigid or cold. It's about finding balance. You can set a boundary while still maintaining kindness and respect. You might say, I understand that you need support, but I am unable to give you more of my time right now. Let's find another solution together. This way, you're standing firm on your limits, but you're also showing empathy for the other person's needs. A key part of setting boundaries is being consistent. It's easy to say no once, but if you don't follow through with reinforcing that boundary, the person may not take it seriously. Consistency ensures that your boundaries are respected and helps others understand that they cannot overstep them. It also reinforces your own sense of self-respect. Lastly, be prepared for some resistance, especially if the person you're setting boundaries with is used to crossing them. This might be uncomfortable at first, but it's important to remember that boundaries are a healthy and necessary part of any relationship. When you stick to your boundaries, you're teaching others to treat you with respect and dignity. In the long run, setting healthy boundaries empowers you to preserve your mental and emotional well-being. It helps you create relationships that are more balanced and fulfilling, where your needs are honored and your peace is protected. When you are troubled by someone, it's easy to become absorbed in the external situation, their actions, words, and behaviors that seem to be causing you distress. However, the key to truly finding peace in such moments lies in turning inward and focusing on your inner state. Your emotional and mental well-being is not solely determined by external events, but by how you choose to respond to them. Focusing on your inner state means taking responsibility for how you feel and recognizing that your peace and happiness are not dependent on anyone else's behavior. While it is natural to be affected by others, it's important to understand that your emotional response is within your control. When you allow someone's actions to disturb your inner calm, you are giving them the power to define how you feel. By shifting the focus to your inner state, you regain control over your emotional well-being. The first step in focusing on your inner state is awareness. When you feel troubled, take a moment to observe what's happening within you. Are you feeling angry, frustrated, hurt, or anxious? Where in your body do you feel these emotions? By becoming aware of your internal reactions, you create a sense of distance between the external trigger and your emotional response. You can then choose how to respond, rather than reacting impulsively from a place of anger or hurt. Next, practice grounding techniques that help center you in the present moment. Deep breathing, mindfulness, and meditation are simple but effective ways to reconnect with your inner peace. These practices help quiet the mind and body, allowing you to detach from the emotional charge of the situation. By focusing on your breath or bringing your attention to the sensations in your body, you create a space where you are less affected by the external disturbance and more anchored in your own inner calm. It's also important to cultivate emotional resilience. Life is filled with ups and downs, and the actions of others will inevitably cause discomfort at times. However, your ability to bounce back from these moments depends on your inner strength. Developing emotional resilience means learning to observe difficult emotions without letting them consume you. It means acknowledging the pain or frustration without identifying with it completely. You are not your emotions, you are the awareness behind them. Furthermore, focusing on your inner state involves nurturing a sense of self-worth that is independent of how others treat you. When you are grounded in your own sense of value, the negative behavior of others has less power to shake you. This inner stability allows you to respond thoughtfully, rather than reacting from a place of hurt or defensiveness. You understand that their actions reflect their own struggles and you do not need to internalize their behavior. When you consistently focus on your inner state, you create an emotional buffer between yourself and external disturbances. This doesn't mean you will never be affected by others. It simply means that you will not be swept away by their actions. Instead, you will be able to navigate challenging situations with clarity, patience, and wisdom. Your inner peace becomes something that no one can take away from you, no matter what happens in the external world. When you are troubled by someone, it's easy to fall into a pattern of frustration, resentment, or even self-pity. However, every challenge, every difficult person, and every uncomfortable interaction can also be an opportunity for learning and personal growth. The key is shifting your perspective from seeing these moments as setbacks to recognizing them as valuable experiences that can teach you something about yourself, others, and the world around you. The first step in learning and growing through difficult situations is embracing a mindset of curiosity. Rather than simply reacting emotionally to someone's behavior, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this situation help me grow? Sometimes the most valuable lessons come not from what others are doing, but from how we are responding. Are there patterns in your reactions? Are you triggered by certain behaviors? And if so, why? By examining your emotional responses, you can uncover deeper insights into your own vulnerabilities, fears, and needs. Every challenging encounter offers an opportunity to improve your emotional intelligence. Difficult people or situations often highlight areas where you can strengthen your patience, empathy, or communication skills. For example, when you feel frustrated by someone's actions, you can use the moment to practice emotional regulation, learning how to manage your feelings rather than allowing them to dictate your actions. Similarly, when faced with conflict, you can refine your ability to listen actively, express yourself clearly, and understand the perspective of others. Growth also involves self-reflection. When someone troubles you, it's important to step back and consider your role in the situation. Are there ways in which you might have contributed to the conflict, or is there something you could do differently next time? This type of reflection helps you gain clarity and empowers you to approach similar situations in the future with greater awareness and wisdom. Another important aspect of learning and growth is resilience. Life is full of challenges and people will inevitably disappoint, hurt, or frustrate you. However, each time you navigate a difficult interaction with grace, patience, and self-awareness, you build your emotional resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity, to stay grounded and centered despite external chaos. Over time, as you encounter more challenges and choose to grow through them, your resilience becomes stronger and you become more adept at handling whatever comes your way. Furthermore, growth means letting go of the need for things to be perfect. Not every situation will turn out the way you want, and not every relationship will be harmonious. However, if you approach every challenge with the intent to learn and grow, you can find value in every experience. The key is not avoiding discomfort or conflict, but rather embracing it as part of the process of becoming a wiser, more compassionate, and stronger version of yourself. Ultimately, the process of learning and growing through difficult people and situations transforms the way you see the world. Instead of feeling defeated or victimized by others, you begin to see each challenge as an opportunity for expansion. You recognize that growth happens when you face discomfort, when you confront your limitations, and when you rise above the circumstances. By shifting your mindset from one of frustration to one of learning, you empower yourself to move forward with greater confidence, clarity, and inner peace. In conclusion, when you're troubled by someone, it's essential to remember that the key to finding peace and resolution lies within you. By understanding that you can only control yourself, taking a step back to gain perspective, recognizing that their actions reflect their inner world, letting go of the need for validation, practicing empathy over judgment, and not taking things personally, you shift the focus away from external conflict and towards self-awareness and emotional balance. Setting healthy boundaries ensures that you preserve your well-being while engaging with others respectfully. And focusing on your inner state allows you to remain grounded and resilient no matter the circumstances. Finally, viewing challenges as opportunities for learning and growth helps you transform every difficult interaction into a stepping stone towards greater emotional intelligence and personal development. Life is full of unpredictable encounters, but by approaching each one with patience, understanding, and a commitment to your own inner peace, you empower yourself to not only navigate conflict more effectively, but to emerge stronger, wiser, and more compassionate in the process. Your peace is not defined by others' actions, but by how you choose to respond to them. By embracing these principles, you create the space for healing, understanding, and growth both for yourself and in your relationships with others.